is woodworking's most forgotten tool, or at least most of us forgot about it because it has this old technology called a cord. Most of us use batteries, right? Well, I regret ignoring this for so long because it's awesome. I thought I knew track saws. I've been using track saws for a couple of years. I've reviewed basically all the track saws that you could possibly review, including Milwaukee, Festool, Mafell, Bosch, even the 40-volt Makita. And I've loved some of them and I've not liked some of them. But this old school, outdated, corded track saw kind of humbled me in a good way. Let's go. If you'd like to check out this saw or any other tool you see in the video today, there'll be a link in the description and the pinned comment to help you find them easier. Let's see what this thing can do. Another box, you get a carrying case, which I always appreciate, especially with these track saws. I like to see the box. That's nice. They're not cheap, and I want to keep them protected, especially if you're transporting them, or even if you keep them in the shop. It's always great to know where they're at because they're always in their storage box if you put them back. However, I think that Milwaukee and Festool, at least the Festool I have, does a better job with the insert. It's a foam insert. It just keeps it nice and protected. A lot of these other ones, like this Makita, just has that plastic insert on the bottom just to keep it kind of where it's supposed to be in there, but it doesn't really keep it from moving around or bouncing around should you get a little rough with it. Not a huge deal, but I do like to see the foam insert personally. Other than that, everything is nicely packaged here, and I don't think you're going to have any problems with that in shipping or anything like that. This is a nice bonus. Get in the carrying case. You also get an instruction manual and a warranty card, should you want to look at those. You probably should. So I've used a ton of track saws over the last couple of years. Probably one of my, well, they are my most favorite woodworking tool. I just enjoy them so much. They're just excellent tools for breaking down sheet goods and a bunch of other stuff, but mainly cutting plywood and things like that. So I've been around the block on these track saws, and I can say, fit and finish of this Makita, top notch. And if you don't know, this Makita model has been out for at least 10 years. Not this specific saw itself, but the model. I found a video on YouTube from Makita that was 10 years old when they were announcing this saw. That's not a bad thing. If this design is proven and we get good power, we'll see how it cuts and how it performs. But overall, I think Makita's making some good stuff, and most people agree. Or at least that's what you tell me. And I tend to agree too. I reviewed the Makita 36-volt track saw, the 40-volt track saw, and of course their big 40-volt router, and some other Makita tools, and so far I've been colored impressed every time. We'll see if that's the case here, and then we'll also compare it to those other track saws to see which one's right for you. Let's go to the features. First and foremost, we have a corded track saw, so you don't have to worry about buying into another battery platform, which a lot of people don't want to do if you're looking at Milwaukee or Festool or Makita or whatever. So you can get this corded version and use it wherever you got power. This is a variable speed track saw, so you can dial that speed up or down depending on what you're cutting, should you need that. This does have electronic speed control, so when you do push it through thicker woods, it's meant to maintain the speed of the blade so you get consistent, accurate cuts. This is a 12-amp motor, so it should be plenty powerful enough to power through anything we need, like the thick walnut, which we'll be cutting in a few minutes. Now we're going to go over the features, and we're also going to compare it to the Makita 40-volt that I have here on hand to see how it stacks up as far as features and power and all that good stuff later. But out of the box, it just looks very similar to the 40-volt, which is a good thing. It's very well made. Now, as far as the depth adjustment goes, we have the single pole thumb screw. This one is it is by far the best single pole adjustment that I've used. It's smooth, it doesn't hang up or anything like that. Some cheaper models like the Win and a couple of others have a single pole that just hangs up, and it's very annoying. This one's very smooth, and the indicators are all nice and bright. White on black, high contrast. On the depth as well as on the bevel cuts, I like how they have these indicators on there. These are like those pinpoint indicators, so you know exactly what degree you're on. Some other ones are kind of fat indicators, and it's very difficult to know if you're on 1 degree or 3 degrees or somewhere in between. So I'm glad to see that these are nice, pinpoint accurate. This is in millimeters, if that matters to you. It doesn't me. I would prefer the imperial, but once you set the depth, I typically eyeball how far down I need to plunge and then go from there. But it's in millimeters, so we have to deal. We got bevel cuts from 0 all the way up to 48 degrees. There are positive stops at 0 and 45. To get to the 48, there's a little lever in there that you're going to push all the way over, and then it'll rock over to 48 degrees should you need that. And then all the way down to 0, it's actually down to -1. There's a push button right behind that lever that will let it drop down to that -1 cut. The bevel action here is butter smooth. You're not going to have any issues with that. There are 2 knobs, one on the front, one on the back that you'll loosen off, make your bevel adjustment, and then tighten both of those up. Keeps both the front and the back nice and tight. And then it does have anti-tip, which I absolutely love on track saws. I think all of them should have anti-tip, but not all of them do. Festool, Mafel, others. But this one does, and it just prevents it from tipping over when you go to 45 degrees. It's handy as a shirt pocket. Oof, big saw. This does have a scribe cut feature, and it's just that little black button right there you're going to push in, and then when you make that plunge, it'll auto stop it. It's going to go about 1/16 of an inch deep past the track, so you can make good quality cuts. The way a track saw or any circular saw works is the way it's cutting on the upcut. You can get tear out on top on more delicate stuff like very thin veneers, things like that. So the scribe cut will help prevent that, and I'm glad to see it here. Another thing not all track saws have is on the base. You can use this off track very easily because just like most all circular saws, you'll see that it has a 0 indicator, in other words a 90-degree cut, and then also a 45-degree indicator. So you can cut 90 degrees or 45 degrees off track just following the line that you scored, or however you mark your lines, using that indicator. So that is handy, so you don't always have to use track. You can use this as a standard, normal, everyday circular saw should you need to. The Makita Track is by far the smoothest track that I've used on any track saws, and I've used a bunch of different ones from Festool to Milwaukee, Win, PowerTech, but the Makita, the plastic on here is wider, and I think that just helps everything glide so butter smooth. It is by far the most impressive feeling track, and just everything glides. It's just well done. Now when you first get your track saw, if you're getting a new track, you'll have to adjust your track saw to the track, and you may have to do this over time as well, but it's very, very simple. This track saw, like many others, has 2 adjustments, one in front of the motor, one behind the motor, and all that does is there might be a little bit of play there when you set it on the track, and if you just start snugging these up until the play is gone, once you get it snug and there's no play left, just snug, it doesn't have to be super tight, you're good to go. And what that's going to do is keep all of your cuts extremely accurate. You're riding that rail the exact same way every single time. If one side's loose or both sides are loose, there'll be a little bit of play in there and it could cause some inaccuracies. First power up, see how she does. Soft start and a blade break, and that thing is butter smooth. Did you hear that motor? That's impressive. I'm excited to get to cut with this, see how it's going to perform, but just the smoothness of this motor is impressive. That was on full speed. That's cool. I like it. Nothing left to do but put this thing to the test and see how it's going to cut. If this performs well, this could be the best corded track saw that I've used to date. All right, cutting our first cut, I'm just going to do a scribe cut here. And like we said, the scribe cut's just basically cutting right below that first layer of veneer so we don't get any splintering when we go to full plunge depth. It did great, like it's supposed to. Now, I went to full plunge depth, made the cut, and as you can see, perfectly clean on the very top and the bottom. This is a 48 tooth blade, so it's a really nice fine tooth blade for doing plywood and things like that, so you'll be happy with this out of the box. We'll talk about the blade that comes on the 40 volt in a minute. I think there's a little difference there, but this one is a really good blade just to use for plywood. We'll see how it does on thicker hardwoods. You can also plunge cut with this saw. That's why they call them plunge saws. A lot of times you call them track saws, but a lot of people call them plunge saws. So if you need to cut out the middle of something, say for a sink or for a window or anything that you're working on that you need to cut the center of the board out or the center of the material out, you can do that by plunging, and this plunges well. Another thing a lot of people don't think about is cross-cutting on plywood. I think this is where these really shine because you're able to break down big sheets of plywood very fast, especially if you add something like this TSO guide rail square. It's one of my favorite track saw accessories. It makes cutting square cuts very fast, And as you can see, I make this cross cut and then check it for square. It is absolutely square. You essentially turn this track into a giant square using this guide rail square. Very handy. Link in the description below. Cutting this big old, almost 2-inch thick piece of walnut on the initial cut, butter smooth. I had it on number 6 as far as speed goes, so maxed out, 0 issues. I could tell that electronic speed control was working. So it kept to maintain a constant speed throughout, which prevents burning and all that stuff. Just a really nice cut. And then I moved the track down one section so I could finish this cut up, and I actually started dialing down the speed just to play with it a little bit. Dialed it down to a 4, from 6 to 4. Didn't see any difference in power. It still cut right through it. It's a little slower, obviously. And then down to 3, and it cut right through it. It didn't bog down or anything like that. That electronic speed makes a huge difference, and I'm glad to see that on here. It worked extremely well. For a high tooth count blade, like this 48 tooth blade for this, basically a ripping job, I think it did a really, really good job. After I got through the cuts, took the square, nice, accurate woodpecker square and check square. It was absolutely perfect, 90-degree cut. No issues there. This is a very accurate saw, which is what we want to see here, especially at this price range. It's on the upper end of the price range for corded saws. I think it's well worth the price, especially for what you're getting based on what I've seen on budget level saws, which we'll talk about in a few minutes on what makes the difference there. As far as dust collection goes, it's okay. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not amazing. I think it's probably on par with the Makita 40 volt, probably on par with the Festool and also the Milwaukee. Maybe, I think. You tell me. And speaking of dust collection, my Festool hose fits right in there, which I always appreciate because I have the Festool dust extractor. Makita makes a dust extractor. There's a lot of them out there. I prefer the Festool just because it's what I got. But I may try the Makita soon. Now let's compare this to its younger brother, the 40 volt Makita track saw. I think this is one of the better cordless track saws on the market. I love the Milwaukee as well and the Festool, but this one I think is best for most people. If you're looking for a cordless track saw, I have a review on that. I'll link to it at the end of this video. But if we're comparing apples to apples here, which kind of we are, other than cordless versus corded, they are extremely similar, almost the same in a lot of ways. First and foremost, the way the depth adjustment works on these saws is identical, so you don't have to worry about giving up anything there. The bevel adjustment, also identical. It appears to me they're using the exact same parts here on these saws, including the indicators, all these bevel adjustments, all of this pieces and parts look like they're interchangeable. Everything except for the shroud and the base are the same in my opinion. I love this saw. I think it's, again, really, really great. So if you're looking for a corded saw that's going to get the job done, it's equally as good as this one, in my opinion. The fit, the feel, the plunge, everything is very, like we're talking, these are the same saws, in essence, minus a battery. If you want to compare this to other corded saws, I was extremely disappointed. Everybody says, well, you like everything you review. Not true, Brown Eyed Sue. I didn't like the Grizzly saw. I thought that was a really bad design. It was also a very underpowered saw. I think it had an 8-amp motor, if I'm not mistaken. Could be, check the footage. It's just not a good saw. It's not good for the money. I think there's other budget level saws out there. If you're looking for a corded saw, check out the Wind. It's okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. Triton made a really good budget level saw. You're starting to get on up in price. I think if you're reaching for the Triton, you should probably just save up and either get Craig or this one. Now, elephant in the room, Craig or this one. I think this is by far a better saw than Craig. I like the Craig track saw, but it uses proprietary tracks. It's also cutting the opposite direction of every other track saw on the market. This one uses standard tracks. Even if you don't want to spend the money for a Makita track, it'll work on a PowerTech or a Wind or Milwaukee or Festool or whatever you can get your hands on. It'll work on those standard tracks. And why that matters is things like that track square that I showed you, the TSO track square, fits on standard tracks and they're interchangeable. So I think this is just a better overall value. I also think this is a more powerful saw. I think the adjustments on this saw are better. I think the way this is built is better. I just think this is a better option versus the Craig. It's going to be about $100 more for the saw kit, but I think it's well worth it. The Craig, I think, comes in at around $400. This comes in at just over $500. So if you're wanting to buy a track saw that you're going to want to use for a very long time, I think this is the way to go for about $100 more. I think you'll be $100 happier. That should be a shirt. $100 happier. So what I don't like about this saw, nothing. There's nothing I don't like. I mean, it's powerful, it cuts accurate, it does everything I wanted it to do. I guess if I was going to change anything about the saw, other than a little bit of better dust collection, I would put this blade that the Makita 40 volt comes on. This is a 56 tooth blade. It also has like this coating on there. This is a better blade, slightly, than this one that comes on it, although the one that comes on this saw is perfectly good. But because these are both 6.5 inch saws, you can buy this blade and put it on this saw should you want to. But I'm splitting hairs here because there's not a lot going on with this saw that I don't like. It's just, for the price, I think you're getting an extremely nice track saw. That's all I gotta say about that. Now I purchased this, yes, I purchased this myself from Rockler, and I did not read the fine print, and I wish I had have, because there's better deals out there than what I got, in my opinion. So this is the SP6000J model number. There's a SP6000J1 that comes with the track. Luckily, I already had this track because of the 40 volt review, but the one on Rockler that I bought, it was like high 400s, like close to $500, $489, something like that. It didn't come with the track. You can get this almost all day long at $519 with the track, but it also comes on sale, so there's that. But you should never pay full price for tools if you don't have to. If you're not in a hurry for the tool, you should sign up for my daily deal emails. I'm sending those deals out every single day on tools just like this, but from every brand, from DeWalt, Milwaukee, Win, and a whole bunch of others. Every day you're gonna get them in your inbox first thing in the morning so you can grab those deals. If you want to sign up, first link in the description and the pinned comment. You should check out the 40 volt Makita Track Saw review right there. If you click that box, you'll get a big old virtual fist bump. Seriously, it's good. But if you don't want to do batteries, get this one. You'll love it.